with Shanna and Vanessa. Today we have Natalie Berthe with us, and she's a cybersecurity expert. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and ask Natalie to tell us more about who she is, what she does, and who she serves. Go for it, Natalie.
Oh, sure. So I am a serial entrepreneur. I've had several businesses. I also do business consulting, and I guess you could say some coaching too. But I'm really into the strategy side of it. And I founded Cybersecurity for Humans because I found that as much as it's a huge problem. The industry talks and does all this tech stuff in the background, and the vast majority of us, at least in the United States and probably around the world, who own businesses are small business owners, and none of that stuff is catered to us. So it feels very much out of reach for a lot of people because it just sounds complex and it's expensive. And my goal is to just demystify the entire process because it's not as hard as people think and it's not as expensive as people think.
That never really occurred to me when it comes to the expense of things. But I know that when 2020 COVID hit, that's where everybody went online. And then that's when everybody got hacked and everybody got compromised. I was one of them.
Well, I will tell you this: it's always been there, right? The people have always been getting hacked, but what was happening was it kind of jumped up exponentially. So, for example, in I think it was 2018 or 2019, the average ransomware demand was like $1,700 or something like that, and now it's like tens of thousands, up to $500,000, depending on the size of the business, right? Because now they're getting very, very sophisticated. But I think also that we've been talking about it a lot more, about the types of scams, like the people in our family have been scammed. What really, really concerns me, though, is that some of us have gotten hacked or scammed so often that it feels normal. And it's just something that you have to deal with, right? And that's not normal. And that's not something that we have to deal with. But what we do have to do is change our habits. That's really ultimately what the problem is. We have to change our habits and what we do.
So, in regards about getting ourselves protected when it comes to online activities that we do, and especially during the height of a season of everybody's whipping out and remembering their credit card information by heart, what are the three reasons why entrepreneurs or maybe any consumers out there they should worry about when it comes to cybersecurity?
Well, I mean, from a small business point of view, small businesses are 3 times more likely to get hacked than large businesses. They're targeted. They're 3 times more. I'm sorry, I should clarify that. They're 3 times more frequently targeted, right? And the reason that we're targeted is because we don't take cybersecurity as seriously, right? We just figure out, oh, we're small, nobody really wants us. Oh, I don't have any important information. And the big companies, they have a whole lot of money, a whole lot of stuff to lose. And even the billion-dollar companies don't want to be paying out $500,000 or multi-million-dollar payouts. I don't know if you all remember in May of 2021, Colonial Pipeline had a ransomware attack, and it stopped the flow of oil all along up and down the East Coast. Well, first to know is that was credentials were compromised, which means somebody lost their credentials. And they ended up paying millions of dollars in ransomware to be able to get access to their billing system so that they could open up the pipelines again. A lot of freaking money. And then we end up having to pay for it, right? Because the cost ends up going on to us. So that's the first big reason. The second reason is that, and it's probably the biggest reason, is that online it's our businesses are our lifeline, right? That's like the bloodline. And if you're not making very much money, it doesn't feel like it's really important. But when you start making money, somebody starts screwing with that. You're SOL. Like that's the nicest thing you could say about that. Whether you're being hacked, or somebody has taken over your social media, and which happens way too often. There's so many things that can happen, and it causes huge problems with what's going with your business. And then you have to spend the time, money, and energy to fix it all. Plus, you're losing your reputation if anybody's information was compromised. And we cannot afford to have that happen to us as small and medium-sized businesses. And yet we don't spend the money to do it. So most of what we have to do is learning. And then the third reason is that, scammers are everywhere. Like, it's really easy to get hacked. It's really easy to get something compromised if you're not doing the things that you really need to do to make sure that you're taking care of business.
Wow, those are great reasons. And one of the things that kept on coming up, it sounds like, is the cost. And actually, before I get on my other question, I wanted to ask just one flat out question. Is it costly to protect yourself as a small business owner, online business owner? Is it costly to protect yourself?
Can I ask you a question back? What would you ballpark that you think it would cost you to make sure you're safe online?
So for me, I have systems in place, that's what I feel is helping me from being attacked. So for me, it's ballpark around $200 a month.
Oh, it's not even that expensive.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, go ahead.
I actually once asked somebody, and it was like, oh gosh, it's got to be at least $5,000 a year. Mm-hmm. It's less than $500 a year. Mm-hmm. Like, when you're putting all the systems in place, mm-hmm. and that's not to say if you're adding additional, like your software or something like that. Right. Like, this is just the real basics. Runs about $350 a year, and that includes backup. That includes, your password management program, your security software. It's not that expensive. You just need to do it. The hardest part is that people don't like change, and they need to learn new habits.
Right. So what are the 3 things that our audience can do right now to prepare themselves, or even get started with protecting themselves from cyber attacks?
Well, the first, and actually, I'm planning on doing a Facebook and an Instagram live about this later on today, but is we need to be careful what we connect with, right? And so this may not be the top thing, but this is the thing that's taking away people's online businesses, and that is third-party apps. I actually was just did a recording to show people how to remove third-party apps, and I did not realize I had dozens, and I don't even click on third-party apps. But third-party apps are a really great way for scammers to get in. Hey, it would just really great to have my horoscope pop up once a day or once a week or something like that, or whatever silly little game or something like that. So delete. If something isn't allowing you to connect on its own terms, and by that I mean, so oftentimes when you join a new, something online, they'll say, hey, do you want to join with your Google account, with your Facebook account, or do you want to do email? Always do email. But the number one thing that I would say is that people need to do better with their passwords. Absolutely the first thing to do. They have to be long, complicated, and if you can remember them, then you're doing it wrong. And I mean that sincerely. They should be. That's why I'm a really big advocate of using something like LastPass or Dashlane, or just something, a password management program that can create really passwords that you can't easily say, because, and everything should be unique. Every account you have should be unique. And if that's the case, when your information is stolen in a data breach, because it will be, that's not something we can happen. 181 million breaches in the last 10 years that we know about, right? Like, that's not even including the ones we don't know about from like small businesses that aren't like posting it everywhere. Then this way, if they've stolen your information, you just have to change that one account. You don't have to worry about all the other accounts that go on that. And then always use 2-factor authentication. It's not 100%, but it's a really strong indicator. The cybersecurity world, like, the number one problem, we keep trying to find technology problems for what is essentially a human problem. Cybersecurity is not an IT issue. It's a business issue, and it's a people issue. It's people with bad habits, whether it's out of ignorance or negligence. That's always what the problem is.
Right, right. Well, this has been a very, very informative. So actually, you mentioned two of the things that I do often, which is passwords. I use LastPass. I've had LastPass for ever since I started my business because my first year of business, I was hacked, and I was the first year of business. I was a noob. I didn't have any money, so I'm like, all right, well, you're not getting anything because I don't have anything. But I was like, I need to do better. And yeah, LastPass is like, my thing. Even for the accounts that I create for our clients, I run it through LastPass.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was actually just talking, I was doing an audit for one of my clients. And that was one of the things. She's like, oh, people just give me their passwords. And I was like, no, you need to make them they're going to use this. And because there's also like the liability, like, do you really want access to somebody's information like that? If they get hacked separately from you, right. I could shut you down as well. So go ahead.
And then the other one is two-factor authentication. And for anyone who's in Facebook, this is, as a Facebook manager, even before I engage a client, I make sure that they have two-factor authentication. Because what happens is if they get hacked and their account is connected to my account, then I get hacked and I get flagged on Facebook. So two-factor authentication is the easiest way to protect yourself in Facebook, especially if your account is very it's prone to being hacked. It's prone to being copied, So those are the two things that to me like are automatic now, right? Because I had to learn those habits as someone who's owned, my business for over 6 years now.
Right. But I would say that the other big way that they're getting in, if they're not getting in from brute force attacks, which is just constantly testing passwords until they find something that works. And there's, all LastPass, all Cisco, they all come up with their Dashlane, their top 100 passwords, and they're all the same every year. It's like, if you think password is a good password, it's not that clever. It's been top 10 for 15 years, Admin, QWERTY, like on the US keyboard, like, come on, man, just like do something to at least like go backwards from the right side, like something. And then but it's the same thing, like all the other in other languages, it's the same patterns on the thing. So, hey, I think this person's in the US, there's a pretty good chance that their password is, password or QWERTY it's terrible. Right. It's terrible. So I use LastPass as well. I used it back in the day where everything was free. And, people think it's really expensive. And I'm not even using the business one because I have my kids on it, but I'm using the family. It's $48 a year plus tax. Like what?
I just pay it annually too. Like, it's just an annual, an annual business expense is what it is.
It's an annual business expense. And and my kids are getting used to using it. So it's kind of a non-issue, which is really important. So then when they move on to whatever they're doing next, like that I feel like that's a really important and easy thing. And my youngest has been using it since he was like 8. So,
that's cool.
It's not hard for them to learn.
Very cool.
Especially at that age. If they can figure out Minecraft with no instructions, they can manage LastPass.
Well, this has been like a really good topic, especially for others, but you do offer some type of audit. Can you tell us more about that, Natalie?
Sure. Yeah, I actually offer for people like to do it themselves. We're also doing courses and courses we're actually doing one right now. We're in the process of doing for cybersecurity for websites because, gosh, websites is a really big hole, and then other targets. But one of the things that I do if somebody wants, to skip the learning curve, I'll do an assessment. I'll do an audit of I call it the HEVA. It's the Human Element Vulnerability Audit, right? The things that we can touch and easily take care of. But, and the habits, what are the habits that you need to do that? So that's a one-on-one with me, and I do all the background and the work and figure out where you need to go and move on with that. So that's always very gratifying. People go, oh my gosh, like I really thought I was doing well. It's like you are, relatively speaking, but not really compared to what you really need to be doing. And nobody's exempt,
Very cool. So we're coming up into Cybersecurity Month. Invite us to your Facebook group, and what kind of events do you have going on?
Well, I actually don't do a lot with the Facebook group. Mostly it's a place where people can come and ask questions. I'm going to be transitioning that to a membership program. I'd hope to launch it this month, but we just had too much going on. New business, just doing it all at once. But we'll be not launching it definitely before, Cyber Monday, actually, hopefully in the next couple weeks. And but I'm just really trying to. One of the things I've really started doing also this month is on my social media channels. I do breach alerts. And so I'll just let people know, hey, by the way, if you have a Neopet account, they got hacked. And I didn't even know what Neopet was. Apparently, it's an online virtual pet thing. And I guess it's happened like 5 times. And their last hack, it's 69 million people users' information, which is a lot of children involved in that. So I'll just let people know, or DoorDash, when DoorDash got hacked, or explain stuff. And people want to, people don't want to read all of this stuff because it's boring, but they want to understand. And what I always say, like, hey, if it's DoorDash, if you use DoorDash, if you're a DoorDash driver, change your password now. Like, that's not something you can screw around with. And if you can, change your email address that goes with it. So that's a lot of what we're doing. We're trying to figure out the stuff that people really seem to be happy listening to, and that's really popular. How to do the little things, and also when they need to be aware of stuff.
That's pretty cool. Thank you so much for
My pleasure.
enlightening us when it comes to like cybersecurity. This may not be something big, but it could potentially cost you your life. Hey, what's the cost of it, right? Would you rather get your identity stolen unbeknownstly, or you'd rather be on top of things and have yourself protected? So if things happen, you're gonna be able to like sleep well at night while everybody else.
Well, so what I find with most, it's true, right? Most entrepreneurs, when I talk to them, are like, I know I'm supposed to do something. I just don't know where to begin. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. And that's actually why I called it the company Cybersecurity for Humans. I was actually thinking about calling it Cybersecurity for the Rest of Us, because like, if you're not a tech person, like, it's sort of, what's DNS? Why do I have to worry about, DDoS and SSL and, all of this language? It sounds complicated. And if you're a tech person, it's fine. Like, be complicated, hang out with the tech guys and gals and do your thing. But for people who are more interested in like not dealing with that, it feels very, very overwhelming. And so we keep trying to, the industry keeps trying to, that's actually, and the problem is called the human factor, right? The what human beings do. 95% of all breaches can be tracked back to what people do and don't do. It's called, like, that's why it's called consistently the number one problem is the human element. And yet we keep trying to come up with IT solutions for what is a human problem. And that's not enough.
So for those who are like listening with us or watching this on a replay or live, let us know below, and we'll go ahead and have some drop Natalie's link. And I'm sure Natalie will be able to get back with you guys.
Absolutely.
If you guys comment on the bottom below. So I'll talk to you guys and have a great week. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank